Werewolves have appeared in folklore in many countries since the medieval times. These countries did not have the ability to spread stories as we do today with newspapers and certainly not the internet. So why is the idea of a half-man, half-wolf so prominent throughout history since these earlier times? In these earlier times, stories and songs were spread by troubadours who traveled, but that just barely explains why these cryptids like werewolves and dragons were all over the world with little communication between countries and continents. So begins a kernel of truth in which legends are built. Drawing from folklore of both ancient and medieval history, werewolves played a significant part in stories, books, and in recent decades, film and television. Just like vampires, werewolves have earned a role in fiction and pop culture. In fantasy, fiction, and horror films, vampires and werewolves often overlap in media, and vampires, who are generally more romanticized, share many similarities to werewolves. But where did this all start? So, historically, the earliest examples of man-to-wolf transformation is found in the Epic of Gilgamesh from around 2100 BC. However, the werewolf as we know it first appeared in ancient Greece and Rome in poetic and philosophical text. In 425 BC, a nomadic tribe of magical men called the Neari, I think I'm saying it right, in Russia, apparently changed into wolf shapes for several days of the year when they were simply using wolf skins to stay warm. But were they magic? The werewolf myth became integrated with the local history of Arcadia, a region of Greece. Here, Zeus was worshipped as Lycan. Lycanthropy is from Greek. Also, it's a mental disorder in which the patient believes that he or she is a wolf or some non-human animal. Lycanthropy today, however, is used in modern pop culture to be considered the transformation process of a man to a werewolf. In popular culture, werewolves have been a staple in film since The Werewolf. The Werewolf in 1913 is a silent film that is considered to be the first werewolf film, and it was directed by Henry McCrae, produced by Bison Film Company, and released by Universal Manufacturing. It is now considered a lost film. All prints supposedly had been destroyed in a 1924 fire at Universal Studios. Werewolf of London, not to be confused with Werewolves of London, the song, is a 1935 horror film directed by Stuart Walker and starring Henry Hall as the werewolf. It was produced by Universal Pictures. Jack Pierce's werewolf makeup was simpler than the version 6 years later for Lon Chaney Jr. in The Wolfman, the first Hollywood mainstream film to feature a werewolf. The Wolfman is a 1941 American horror film. It was produced and directed by George Wagner. The film starred Lon Chaney Jr. in the title role, Claude Rains, Warren William, Ralph Bellamy, Patrick Nolas. Bela Lugosi, as a matter of fact, lost a role to Lon Chaney, whose performance in The Wolfman did prepare him into stardom. The title character has had a great influence on Hollywood's depictions of the legend of the werewolf. Besides the older classics, my personal favorite horror movies are The Howling, Company of Wolves, Wolfen, Silver Bullet, and of course An American Werewolf in London. The most famous true account is the Beast of Graviton. I think I'm saying it right. It's French. For 3 years between 1764 and 1767, a large wolf-like beast terrorized the citizen in the area around Graviton in the southern central part of France. Some eyewitnesses claimed the beast to look like a large wolf and about the size of a horse. Beginning in the summer of 1764, the beast began to prey on lone men, women, and children who were tending livestock in the area around the forest. The beast attacked its victims at the head or neck, never around the stomach or limbs. Attacks increased, and it was presumed that there were actually 2 or more beasts making these attacks. The king had rewards offered for the capture or killing of this beast. A band of royal wolf hunters were sent to destroy the beast, and in September of 1765, one of the king's hunters, Francois Antoine, killed the wolf. It measured to be over 5 feet long and weighing over 130 pounds. The wolf was stuffed, and the reign of terror was declared to be over. However, a few months later in December, the beast returned and several more killings were reported. In the summer of 1767, a hunter named Jean Chastel claimed to kill the beast for good during a hunting excursion. The beast was finally taken down with a blessed silver bullet made by Chastel himself. When the wolf was cut open, they found human flesh remains in its stomach. By the end of this time, the beast had killed over 100 people and injured about half as many. The Beast of Graviton is a true story backed up by records from that era, and the notion that it was a werewolf came from its first literary mention in 1858 by Elie Bertet, when the attacks were done by a man claiming to be a werewolf. The legend has taken off from there. Another story, the boy Lycanthropy. In 1603, it was a 14-year-old boy who was brought to trial for the crimes of murder. Mentally and physically retarded, he told of how he and another young boy ran away from home into the forest. They met a man clothed in black and accepted wine from him and were taught to coat themselves in oil and fur. They transformed into wolves and ate 15 children. Finding his crimes to be the result of mental illness, they confined him to a mental institution for the rest of his life. Over the years, he grew gaunt and long nails like claws, his teeth were sharp like a canine's, and he was fascinated by wolves and imitated them at any given chance. This may be one of the first recorded cases of lycanthrope, and after his trial, judges began to regard these werewolf cases with a little more tolerance. Hypertrichosis, the condition also known historically as werewolf syndrome, also known as Umbra syndrome, that affects fewer than 1 in a billion people, and that only 50 cases have been described since the Middle Ages. Umbra syndrome is a disruption of the crosstalk between the epidermis and the dermis as hair follicles form in the 3-month fetus. In the 1500s, it would transform one man into a national sensation, an iconic fairy tale character. His name was Petrus, more commonly known today as the hairy hero of Beauty and the Beast. But we're going to stick to werewolves. And then there was Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy, or Jojo the Dog-Faced Man. Born in St. Petersburg, Imperial Russia in 1868, Fedor suffered from the medical condition hypertrichosis. He toured with his father, Adrian, who developed the same ailment and had performed in the French circuses. He continued to tour with his son before his death. Fedor eventually signed a contract with P.T. Barnum, who brought him to the United States in 1884, when he was only 16 years old. Barnum created a story that involved a hunter and Kostroma who tracked Fedor and his father to their cave and captured them. Barnum described Adrian as a savage who could not be civilized. Barnum made a point of stressing Fedor's resemblance to a dog and explained that when he was upset, he would bark and growl. Fedor obliged by doing so. Fedor was actually a very intelligent man who spoke Russian, German, and English and toured Europe and the United States extensively. He died in Greece from pneumonia on January 31st, 1904. So some other ideas are that there is more lunacy during the lunar phases. So the idea of shape-shifting humans has been around since ancient times and remains an evocative theme even today. But less attention has been given to clinical lycanthropy, a condition that, although rare, does occur. Since 1850, there have been 56 original cases, descriptions of people who believe they were metamorphosizing into an animal. Among them, 13 reports met the criteria for clinical lycanthropy. The medical term for having delusions of being able to turn into a wolf is used to emphasize the condition that means lycanthropy, or the ability to metamorphosize physically into a wolf, but they don't physically do it. Then there's something called the lunar effect. The lunar effect is a real or imaginary correlation between specific stages of the roughly 29.5-day lunar cycle. Behavior and psychological changes in living beings on Earth, including humans, are supposed to take place. But is it true? The incidence of crimes reported to 3 police stations in different towns, one rural, one urban, and one industrial, was studied to see if it varied with the day of the lunar cycle. The period of the study covered 1978 to 1982. The incidence of crimes committed on full moon days was much higher than on all other days. This all may be due to human tidal waves caused by the gravitational pull of the moon. In West Yorkshire, England, from 1997 to 1999, 1,621 patients were treated for animal bites at the infirmary. 2 days before the full moon, bites accelerated, and the day of the full moon, they peaked. After 3 days of accelerated bites, there was a significant difference in bites. The study concluded that animals have an increased inclination to bite a human being during a full moon period. Since I'm a motorcyclist, I will include this little piece. A study of 13,029 motorcyclists killed in nighttime crashes found that there was 5.3 more fatalities on nights with a full moon compared to other nights. I figured I'd throw that in. In the winter of 2010-2011, there was a super pack of wolves numbering up to 400. Reportedly, they terrorized a Russian town, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. This town is a northern region, and it's one of the most remote inhabited areas of the northern hemisphere. More than 30 horses were killed in just 4 days, and according to local officials and teams of hunters, they were there to establish patrol neighborhoods and shoot the wolves on site. Animal experts suspicious of the crime say that the wolves usually form packs of no more than 10 to 15. The particular harshness of that particular winter may have killed off a lot of the wolves' normal prey. Then there's the Kirov wolf attacks, and I hope I'm saying that right. And they were a series of man-eating wolf attacks on humans which occurred in 1944 to 1954 in 9 regions. Of the 120,800 people that lived there in that socialist republic, it resulted in the deaths of 22 children and teenagers between the ages of 3 and 17. The largest wolf in the world is the Canis lupus occidentalis, also known as the Mackenzie Valley wolf. It typically stands about 32 to 40 inches high at the shoulder and weighs between 110 and 175 pounds. Reports have reported wolves as large as 235 pounds. When you combine all the factors of hypertrichosis, the lunar effect, clinical lycanthropy, along with all the tales of crazed wolves, werewolves, Hollywood's version of these monsters, it's no wonder this concept has endured for so long. There are many things that are difficult to explain. There are shapeshifters in this world. There is a lot of belief, and when you believe hard enough, can it just become a little bit real? And we talk about the 10 dimensions. You're left to wonder, can you become something else in a different dimension? But we'll talk about dimensions another time. For today, that's really all I have to say about werewolves. They're still my favorite monster. Anyway, you guys take care of each other and keep rock alive. Hey guys, I'm Rikki Rockett. I do play drums for Poison, but on my spare time, I love checking out urban legends. I'd love to have you come back to my channel, so if you would, subscribe, hit the bell, and make sure to like this if you like the video.